And peop- and it says that recording's in progress. And just so that we can move through this, if everyone takes yourself off mute for a minute, I'm just going to go through. Mike,
Present.
and I'm present, and Greg,
Here.
and Renee,
Yep, here.
Deb, Boomer, Bill,
Yes.
and Jennifer,
Yep,
is our invited guest, and Christy,
Here.
and then Renee.
Rita, here.
Oh, I'm sorry, Raina, and Renee.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, thanks. And Len
Here.
and Steve.
I'm here.
Hey, Lynn,
Okay.
Lynn, I think your television's on. We can all hear it.
Oh, John, could you put that on mute?
Or you can mute yourself too. That's the other thing.
Yeah, let me do that for now.
All right. Thank you.
All right, so Greg, you want to make your general announcements?
My general announcement is this meeting is being recorded. You can find our agenda on the website, as well as a link to our YouTube channel where you can find this video, which will be uploaded shortly after the meeting within a few days.
Oh, cool.
Thank you. I'm just quickly jotting down everyone that's here. Okay, so right to the agenda. Greg, you haven't had a chance to do the minutes yet, correct?
I have not.
Okay, so we'll have those we'll table those. So subcommittee update. The FTF has not met yet, correct, Mike? You're on mute.
That's
but
correct.
I'm
No meeting.
Okay, and that you may want to, after we start organizing, doing some things, but we'll have that conversation in a bit. And Bill, you have a meeting scheduled for March 30th. Is that still on? I was trying to see if that was posted.
That is
was
not
gonna
still
be
on
on-
it. We canceled. Am I on mute? No, I'm not. And am I speaking too loud? I should always ask.
No, you're good.
That was, we canceled that meeting because back-to-back meetings didn't make a lot of sense. And I thought that the purpose of the meeting tomorrow night was supposed to be to give some purpose to talking with the faculty next week. And I think that should take effect tonight. That kind of conversation. So that's where it stands.
Okay, good. Then
And
make
after
sure
that, we will
pick
set,
up-
we will set a meeting sometime in the future because we need to meet with the facilitator.
All right, so you want me to loop back to you later on? Hi, Michelle. Michelle also just joined us. You want me to loop back to you later on, Bill, in the meeting to talk about, or you want ideas about what to talk about with the faculty? Is that what you'll be looking for? Feedback or something?
Sure.
Okay, so we'll loop back there. So we'll do a follow-up article once we have recommended. The process will be we'll recommend someone to the Gilmontague District. They're actually the hiring authority. So once I let Joanne know of our action, then she'll execute the contract. I'm sorry I didn't get that out until today, but it was a very quick read. Actually, there was only one page that really covered it all. She did a nice job capturing that. So that was pretty straightforward, and it captured the things that we put out in the RFQ. So she did a nice job being very specific in her response. We didn't get any other bidders on this, so that certainly makes the award simpler. However, I was pleased very much so, that she expressed an interest to join us again. She can hit the ground running. She knows the players. She knows us. She had a very good way about herself. So I think that she'll really be able to move this along, and she has a lot of good ideas. So I think we'll all enjoy working with her in the coming 3 months. So any questions about, so obviously I'll be asking for a vote for Mary. But you want to have a conversation, or anyone want to make comments about that before we take an action? For the recording purposes, it's Mary Broderick.
Mike has his hand up.
Oh,
Mike,
Yeah, just,
thanks. Thank you.
just for the record, I'm all in favor of hiring Mary. But I think we do need to have more conversation about exactly what we expect her to do. Because her description of what she's going to do is I think covers bases, but not in a very specific way. So, and I think it's up to us to clarify what it is we're expecting. So hopefully, as Bill says, maybe we can do that tonight.
Yeah, that sounds good. And hopefully the agenda is going to provide clarity on that as we look at the implementation and priorities, because that kind of breaks down more specifically what the expectations are of her and of the working committee. Greg,
yeah,
are you?
forgive me. Yeah, I just wanted to ask, was she the only one that bid?
Yes, apparently you didn't hear me say that. Yeah, she's the
Yeah,
only one.
sorry,
that did.
I must have missed that. I mean, I assumed that because I didn't hear otherwise, but I was just curious. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and I touched bases with Joanne again today to just verify, did she see any issues with the bidding process or the response, and make sure she was the only one. So we're good to go on all fronts. All right, well, then I will entertain a motion to recommend for our board to recommend to the Gilmontague District that we move forward Mary Broderick as the facilitator.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Perfect. So Bill made it, and who seconded it?
I did. Steve.
Oh, thank you, Steve. Thank you. All right, so motion made and seconded, and I guess I will do this by roll call. Mike, you're on mute,
Aye.
and I'm gonna say aye as we go along. Greg
Yes.
and Deb,
Yes.
Bill,
Aye.
Christie,
Aye.
Raina,
Yes.
and Steve,
Yes.
Len,
Aye.
thank you. Renee
Yep.
and Michelle.
Yes.
And I guess that's our voting. So, okay, so that's unanimous. And thank you, moving right along. So this will probably bring us into a combination of discussion with Bill and others in terms of how to handle this work. I tried to outline very briefly some thoughts about breaking down, and it doesn't have to be by subcommittees, it can be by interest or where you think your talents are, but it's difficult to try to get 18 members together to participate in, on a particular day, and particularly when if we're all trying to do like a particular task, even if in a multitask environment. So the thinking is that if we reorganized ourselves, the subcommittees would remain intact, but members can then go out to various I'll call them subcommittees, where we focus on some of the things that we talked about before. So if we had 3 or 4 people that said, hey, we'll go back, we'll look at the questions that came out of the last round, and we'll, take a stab at how to answer them. That would be something that we could then bring forward as a working group, and we'd already have a product that we're just tweaking or adding to it. Or we could send our comments on the various questions. If someone put out and said, hey, here's the question, any ideas on how you would respond? So that could be one mini group that handles that part. Another one could be the survey. There was, discussion about, did it capture really what we wanted? Could we make that a little more, to get more information out of it? What are we looking for? So another group could be looking at putting together a focus survey. And that could be the work of another group. And then there would be a group that could work on a community outreach where we would present our, the findings that we had before, just highlighting the major ones. And that could be done through PowerPoint, looking at what we gleaned out of the last one. And I think probably sort of putting a text or a context to that, because I think one of the things that might have been problematic is that, oh, hi, Pat, thanks for joining us.
Hi.
One of the things that might have been problematic is, we had the slides and we had organized our thoughts about how we would present them. And I think we did pretty well, but sometimes in the explanation or the review, it created a little bit of confusion. So I think we will need to, clean that aspect up. So that's another task that we would be working on over the next 3 months. And then having a presentation that we're bringing out to the community, maybe presenting to the school committees. It'd be nice if we could do that jointly in a remote meeting. Doing one presentation, not in every community, but one at one high school, one at the other high school, for the communities to come in, and anyone that's interested. But someone had suggested that we organize it in such a way that we have it recorded by the respective districts or TV stations, so that gets the word out and we can share that. It can run a number of times, and then we can, that can be shared out in the community that way, and try to do all of those things before we then try to put out a survey. So we're really educating people, sharing things, bringing up to speed, directing them to the website for questions and answers, and doing all that in the background. And then the last step would be, the survey. In the meantime, Bill had commented before we started about he started to organize sharing information with the staff, talking to the principals of the middle school and high school and the superintendent, and getting the logistics of that going. So the hope would be that Mary will be working with all the mini subgroups to move this along, but we could have some people work with her to remote meetings of the joint staffs, as Bill was saying earlier, in terms of, the English department, the related arts. Brian had brought up how important that is and how much talent there is in both districts. To emphasize that, we could look at the sports and then all the content areas to glean out from our professionals in both our districts as to what they would see, what might they be able to do with their population expanded considerably from what they have now. So that'd be really good information to have. Deb Pote just joined us. Hi, Deb. How are you? So that's sort of an overview of how we might break this down. So let me back up now to Bill. Since a big part of it sounds like what you'd be doing or planning to do
Hey,
is
Alan,
laying the groundwork. Yes.
Just before you move on to that, Deb Loomer has a question or a comment. Sorry.
Yeah, just
Oh, I didn't see your hand.
Okay.
as you were saying all that, I noticed the amount of money that was in the grant. For me, I think one of the problems is that we aren't reaching the community. And so I would like to see if there's a chunk of money, literally have a sign printed up somewhere that you would put at Mims Market, at the IGA. I suppose we can't put them at a liquor store, at Scotty's in Turner's Falls, something that people visually see when they go in, because if you don't read the newspaper or you look at an article and it really doesn't look like it's going to interest you and you blow by it, whereas I really think if you really want the community input, you have got to have something that's visually in front of them that's going to make them go, oh, I didn't know we were doing that. And they might have an opinion one way or another. But I just think we're not reaching the community as a whole. I think we're reaching maybe the community of the parents if it comes out in a newsletter, but I think just having it in the newspaper has limited. Maybe you get the HAI or the radio station, the country station, see if you can get a public service piece out there. And they're usually pretty good about putting out blurbs. Maybe on Saturday morning when they're doing their swap, they say, by the way, and obviously that would be their choice. But if there's a chunk of money, I was just going to say that when you talk about getting to the community, I think that's going to be a piece of how are you reaching the community? And I think you have to reach them in multiple ways. You might even try, to be honest with you, I watch Channel 40. They have community service stuff that they pop on at certain hours of the day. That might be something else. But I think we need to look at how do we really reach the community in the way they want to be reached, not the way we think they should be reached, but how will they be reached? It made me start talking about community. It might mean some money.
Those are good.
I think it'd be worthwhile.
Yeah, those are great thoughts. Would you mind sort of capturing that in a little in a document to outline? You said a lot of good things, and maybe we can organize it into areas. Particularly, what would we want on the signs? And how would we advertise? That's a good point. Telling people, we have things on the website, unless they're on a website or they talk to someone. I don't know, if there's informational, that directs them to places as well. So those are great suggestions. So if you could codify those, let's tackle that. And maybe you'll be thinking about, there might be a couple people that would be willing to work with you on a subcommittee level to share some thoughts. So thank you.
All right.
That sounds good. By the way, I didn't say that, I'll come to you in a minute, Mike. I didn't say that we're going to give the teachers a stipend for these meetings, about an hour and a half meetings. We'll pay them $50 so that, we can give them some recognition for their time. So as we pull together some people from the various departments and organize that, Bill, you could share with them that we plan on compensating at that level for each hour and a half meeting.
Yes, but that begs the question as to how many people you planned to have a stipend for. And if you're looking
Well,
at
we figured.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, we figured, thanks, Dave, for joining us. We figured that when I talked to Joanne, she thought that one or two in each content area, like let's say the science department head, if there's such a thing, whatever they call them, has a meeting with them to, glean their ideas and so forth, and the curriculum coordinator. And then we have someone from Pioneer, someone from Gil Montague in the content area. We have both curriculum coordinators there. So there'd be 4, 2 teachers, 2 coordinators if they thought the coordinators should be in that in place of a teacher. So it was organized. I think there were 10 groups, and the thinking was 4 in each that were coming together.
So you're
So,
talking total dollars, how much available for
I will
stipend?
have,
And
yeah,
then
I'd have to go back.
you need to talk to Michael.
That'd be 2,000. If you had 40 teachers at $50 for the hour and a half, that would be $2,000.
Yeah, there may have been a little more than that. I'll have to go back and take a look because we sort of calculated that out. Mike?
I just wanted a quick reaction to what Deb said. I think she's got a good point, but it occurs to me that we might want to think a little bit about what the expected reaction is from people seeing this poster. Deb, you described it as people who haven't read about this in the newspaper, don't really know what's going on, and they're going to see a poster and they're going to say, hey, I didn't know about this. Personally, I think that we should be directing them to find out more. In particular, I don't think we should send them right to a survey, because if you get someone that has no idea what's going on, you send them to a survey, how useful is whatever answer they give in that survey? So, and if they haven't found out about it already, it may be tricky to get them motivated to now try to find out about it. I don't know, but just occurred to me listening to that.
But you can't cancel them out, because in the end, it's going to go to a vote. And when it goes to a vote, then if they were totally uneducated, then they'll really have an opinion. At least if you caught them halfway through and you sent them somewhere, they would be slightly more educated if it went to a vote. But you don't want to have this thing go to a vote with people not knowing anything about it. So I'd rather them go right now, I don't know anything about it, and start learning about it maybe, than wait until the vote happens and then they'll vote with no information.
Well, no, I
So-
agree. That's the part I wanted to hear, was to start learning about it, maybe.
Yeah, and I just comment that, Mike, when I listened, I think one of the things I take out of your comment, your hand's still up, by the way. I don't know if you want to talk some more, but one of the things I take away from your comment, Mike, is there's and Deb too. There's going to probably be a shock factor that if they haven't, been aware of any of this going on, and then all of a sudden they see a poster and started information, it's good. It's going to be, whoa, what's going on? What's happening? So we have to be aware that we'll need to respond in the shock factor reaction that may happen. But I do agree that I'd rather have a shock factor and start people getting involved because they want to know what's happening. So I will call on Steve, and then I'll go to Deb Pote. Steve, your hand's up.
That was there too.
Pat had her hand up. Pat and then Deb.
Oh, I was looking for the little wavy hand. So
Okay.
Oh,
Not
I did
Steve.
have it up, it disappeared, but whatever.
Oh.
I think there's a number of people that don't get the newspaper to see it. I mean, there's been wonderful articles in the paper, but if you don't get the paper, I don't know how many of us at our meeting today get the paper, but there's a lot of people that don't. And you, like Deb said, you've got to reach out and snag them somehow, inform them, get them a little aware of what's going on, unless you're in the school
Yeah.
system or somehow find out it's not happening.
Yeah. Pat, would you be willing to work with Deb on that?
Sure.
Brainstorming?
Sure.
Thank you. Yeah, great.
If we-
Thank you.
If the two of
Um,
us have any brains, but yeah. We're on this committee. I'm
I
not
think,
sure.
I think that, Deb, you had your hand up?
I think maybe it was Karen, and you guys can remind me, but I think this is true. It would be really helpful to film, I guess, Mary or maybe Mike or somebody who wants to do that, just to give an overview of some of the, maybe the presentation that Mary gave, and just get it on BNC TV. It would just sort of be rotating, they play things over and over again, and the flyers can certainly refer to that. I think that would be one way of getting some people who don't get the recorder. And I don't know about it being on a Facebook page, or I don't know if do we have a Facebook page? Because that can be used in to people can just go and watch something that's 15 minutes long, not very long, or maybe something that's longer, like an hour-long program about what we've done. But I think that would be really important for Mary to do that, if that's possible.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that when I gave a quick review of mini groups, figuring out how to get this back out to the community and sharing what we learned in the past and what we recently learned. Greg?
Now, we had mentioned possibly going through the school district themselves, sending a flyer through the school district, as well as I know Gil has a town flyer or a town bulletin that it sends out. That would be another way to get the word out.
Northfield does not anymore.
Okay.
It
Yeah.
died a few years ago.
Any town that does, that's a good place because they usually go out to all residents. So.
Yeah, Warwick has the L. I don't know. I guess maybe every town has their way of getting things out.
Although I wonder, it's funny, sorry to interrupt, but I guess I could I used to be on the community newsletter. Even if we did one thing like a flyer about it and mailed it, we might actually still be able to do that.
So,
Not for a one-time thing,
Alan,
just for Northfield.
Yeah, Deb?
what I'd like to do then is if you can ask people now, I know, like Greg says, Gil has one. Deb said that she can look into the Northfield. What about Warwick? Is there, David, do you have any, is there a Warwick or Alan, is there a Warwick newsletter or?
Yeah, David, David, do you have to put things on the on the L, or is it just other folks?
There's a listserv. There's a listserv. There's a Facebook page, which is a closed group, but has 300 or 400 subscribers.
So if I sent you something, you could put it on?
Yeah, so I can put it on the email listserv. I can post it on that Facebook page. Our town website's a mess, but I hope it's improving. We're working on a project where departments can post their own stuff through WordPress. But yeah, somehow we needed 28 people and we got 128 to a special town meeting last night.
Okay, is there someone from
Yeah, that was
Berkeley?
pretty awesome.
Berniston is in flux on that. They're like searching for someone to take over the newsletter, but if you got something to me, I could forward it to the people that would be organizing it once that's underway again, but I don't know how timely it will be.
Leiden?
Leiden has a very active newsletter, and if you send me something, I'll make sure it gets in there.
Okay.
And also I'll put it on the town website.
Okay.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Who am I missing? Irving?
Yeah, Irving has an around town.
So if I got you something, Jen, you could,
Yep, absolutely.
I missed someone?
I see, Christy, is your hand up? Oh, it's up on screen. Mike, is your hand up or is it not ever, did not go down?
My hand is up.
I was gonna say
Okay, go ahead.
Montague.
Yeah, I
Oh,
mean,
yeah, we're
Montague,
looking for Montague.
Montague doesn't have a community newsletter. It does have the Montague Reporter, which a lot of people who are interested in what's going on around town read. If the goal is to reach people who aren't in that group, I don't know how useful that would be.
Okay.
The reason I raised my hand is I hope we're not getting ahead of ourselves. Do we know what, I mean, Deb, you're saying if you get these people something, can they put it in these newsletters? Do we know what the kind of what you can get them is?
No, that's what the committee, the little subcommittee that we have, will get together and we'll decide it and bring it to whoever for agreement and then get it out.
Okay, so bring it to whoever means coming
Right,
back to this group.
Whoever, Pat, like Pat said, okay, I'll work with Debbie. So we'll get together, we'll kind of plot it out, what it should say, you know, and then let people see it and people can say, well, I want to change that word. Well, I don't know, is that appropriate? And come up with a finished product. I think one of the things that Bill has done very well is we can't sit and spin our wheels forever. You know, action has to start, and action needs to start with people of the town knowing about it. And so the sooner that occurs, the sooner there'll be more discussion, the sooner we'll know what the pitfalls, the positives, the negatives are, what the concerns are, so that we can get information to address it. If we just keep plotting, then we're just not using our time efficiently.
Well, that all sounds good to
Can I-
me. I'd suggest that a couple of ideas for what to point people to. One would be an updated PowerPoint, which I believe we're going to talk about tonight. And another is somebody made a suggestion, I think it was Deb Potee, of maybe doing some kind of a TV show that could run on BNC TV, and also Montague has a community television, which maybe could involve that PowerPoint along with people commenting on it. I don't know. But it seems to me that establishing what we're going to point people to, I agree, we shouldn't just sit around, we got to get something going. But that seems like job one to me, is figuring out and putting together what we're going to point people to. And if your group is going to hash out, you know, would you rather have a PowerPoint or a TV show or something else or whatever, as a first step, that sounds great. But at some point, we're going to have to work on what it is that we point people to, because I don't think we have it right now.
No, we don't. And it's multi-layered. And I think that's what Deb was, that was what I was getting out of what you were saying, Deb, is that we've got to approach this from multi-levels, you know, whether it be signs in front of stores, TV, you know, commercials, you know, something in the papers, directing people to, you know, websites. I mean, you listed a lot of good. I'm wondering if Christy, would you be willing to do that, work on that with Deb and Pat?
I would love to.
Thank you.
Never.
And the only other one
Love is a strong
how-
word.
Just to clarify, I'm glad David's
Said
here
it with
because
a
I
smile though.
think you know the answers, but these will all be subcommittees, right? Which means that they need to post meetings and take minutes.
Isn't that what Greg's for? I'm sorry, Greg.
I don't think we can just sort of meet off in small groups as part of this committee and not have them be public meetings, but.
I
David,
think
correct
we
me if I'm
can.
wrong.
All right, you're corrected. You're wrong. It's not an established subcommittee. It's a working group within a committee. And that's why some towns have 5-member select boards, so 2 of them can talk to each other.
Yep.
I don't agree that this would be a subcommittee. I think it would be a working group. But we
Well,
can
as
ask
long as you're
council.
willing to
What do you
make
think,
that case to
Michelle?
the AG.
You wear the same hat. What do you think?
I agree with you. It's only two people.
There's three.
Well, it's
people.
gonna be three
Oh,
to
three.
four, but
Okay.
it's still way less than the 18.
Right.
And it is just a working group, think tank kind of things, and it's gonna come back to the full committee, so I would think, it's gonna be an informal structure with a product that will be percolating through.
Well, I'm just not sure why you need subcommittees ever then, if you can do that instead.
Well, let's not work, let's call them working groups. I think that's probably a better term, because that's what people would be doing. They're pre-planning and for an action item that the full board will be aware of and when it hits the ground.
Okay, if you say so.
Well,
Also, be aware
I'm good with that.
that decisions about what to put on an agenda, discussions about what to put on an agenda are not subject to open meeting law as well. When to meet, what to put on an agenda, not the merits of the point, but is this going on an agenda? Or the crafting of an agenda, that's not open meeting.
And so you can structure it around that, actually, when you're having your conversations and identifying things. That's a good point, David. Greg, you want to weigh in on this?
What am I weighing in on, Alan?
Well, as the Board of
How many
Selectmen, we're going to
subcommittees do
form
we
some.
have?
Well, I mean, I would defer to David and Michelle. I think the working groups do exist, and I think they have a good point. I think when we established our subcommittees, we did that formally, and therefore we do have to publicly post those meetings because we voted to actually create those. I think if we want to just designate a working group, I'm going to defer. They know more about this than I do, but I think I'm okay with it if they think it's okay.
So
Yeah,
the
just
vul- the
acknowledge
vulnerability,
it.
let me just address the vulnerability of, so we have two subcommittees that I'm knowledgeable of. They have a defined membership and less than a quorum of a subcommittee meets. You have to be careful of serial deliberation. You can write up a report to the full committee and send, or the affected subcommittee and send it out, but don't engage additional people. It's like a game of telephone tag. So if it starts out with Michelle and I, and then we call up Alan and say, what do you think? And then Alan calls Bill and Jennifer, pretty soon we've reached a quorum, and that is a problem.
Yeah. So, Deb Pote, that would make 4. Do you have any interest in just coming up with a think tank and sharing some ideas on how to get the word out? So, thank you. So we would have the 2 Debs, we'd have Christie and we'd have Pat and you, Deb. All right. So you guys get together as a working group, figure it out. You can do that at another time, shoot out an email, see when people can do this, and start organizing yourselves and how you best think would be to reach out to get the word out in the different venues. And that's the logistical part. The merits would be the ideas on what you would want for the various venues, because it might be a little different depending on the forum that you're getting the word out. So that will be the kind of the 2-phase process. And okay, that's good. Steve, do you know your hands up? The little icon hand. I never know if you want me to call on you. So Bill, I'm gonna kind of. Okay, well, don't worry about it.
I don't think so.
Wave your hand to me if you have if you want to say something. So Bill, let's. It seems like the focus of what you would be doing initially. You said before the meeting started, you shared a little bit with me about what's happened so far, but we had a lot of people join us since then. Would you mind doing a review of where you're at so far?
not at all. I think it's necessary. my intention for everybody wanting to get information out in talking with the faculties and the principals if they're present. I know Kevin Burke is not going to be present because of a personal issue, but in any event, my plan is to start out telling people what we haven't done. And what we haven't done is made any final decision about anything. What we have done is engaged several consultants to do 2 separate studies for us, even though they were the same consultant and generally came up with the same conclusions. They then proceeded to form our committee, who assigned us, what kind of support we get now, pretty much a generic approach to saying who the committee is. And then, as we were discussing briefly about the stipends, how we would like to go forward with this, starting with what the faculties and administration of both districts can provide and collaborate with us to either promote this project or prove that it's a fruitless effort. We certainly haven't made any definitive statements as a full committee about what we believe is the case today or where we're actually going. We are in the investigatory process, and the staff, by introducing both staffs to the same story at relatively the same time, then at least they both know the same scrambled information that I'm sure to give them. And I think that's a beginning, and it's very likely that they may talk to some of their students about it. It's possible that we'll also certainly want to engage. It's certain that we want to engage the students too, but that's on a different level than people that we're actually directing stipends to, as well as their volunteering, their comments. So that's where I'm coming from. That's where I plan to go. And anybody that wants to attend, certainly from the Ed subcommittee, I know Karen said she would make herself available, but didn't necessarily want to lead the meeting. I'll lead the meeting, but I'm not, I'm speaking for the committee. I'm not speaking for myself.
I'll be there, Bill.
Okay.
What are the dates?
April 5th at Pioneer is at 2:30 or 2:45, one of those two. And 6th, which is a Wednesday, April 6th, is at Turners Falls High School at 2:30 also. If you get there at 2:30,
Thank you.
you'll be early for one and just on time for the other. Okay.
It's 45.
And is this,
I'm sorry.
Bill, is this,
Oh,
yes, go ahead, Deb.
It's 2:45 at Pioneer and 2:30 at Turner's.
thanks.
Bill,
Bill,
for
can I
clarity,
ask?
ahead, Mike.
Sorry. Well, just, yeah, I have a clarifying question. You're saying these are different from the meetings where people will be offered stipends?
Me?
the answer is yes. The answer is yes.
Okay.
There's no stipends for these. And to back up a minute, Bill, so are you, the invitation is for, because you're right, when we had the things in the evening, the staff had worked a full day and we didn't get as many people obviously as we wanted. So you're doing, I'm glad you're doing this. These are in-person meetings, or are they remote meetings?
This is the meetings I'm about to attend. They're in-person meetings, they're faculty meetings, they're regularly scheduled faculty meetings. And I simply requested to be put on the agenda, and I don't get a speaker's fee and I don't have to pay the audience.
Excellent. I'm so glad you took that initiative. So faculty, do you know if is that really the teachers, or is it more encompassing when they were doing this? Are the paraprofessionals going to be there, administrators, or is it, or do you think your audience is mostly is going to be teachers?
I believe it will be mostly teachers, but I'm waiting to find out.
Okay.
I didn't
Okay.
ask specifically who was going to be there, but I have been told, at least from Turners Falls School, that it includes the faculty of the high school and the middle school, which may very well include paraprofessionals. Probably should.
It's all according to what their contract says. If their contract says they have to attend X amount of faculty meetings, then they'll be there. If it doesn't, they won't be there probably.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I'm assuming you had a chance to talk to Patricia Kinsella. Did she direct you to Ariel or a point person that will be sort of filling in while the full is on leave for a bit?
No.
Okay. So is she getting the faculty together at Pioneer?
The only word I got was from Kevin, who said that he wouldn't be there, that he'd been very busy, and therefore it took him a little bit time to get back to me, but that the faculty would be meeting, and he would instruct whoever was in charge that I would be coming and be first on the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
And that's
perfect.
it.
Ina? Oh, your hand's up. What do I have a hand? Maybe I'm the one with a hand. Yes, I am. My hand was moving around the computer and I thought it was yours. Okay.
What happens when you lean on the
Okay.
computer, Alan?
No kidding. All right, so that opens the door. That's great. You'll probably get a lot of good information to share from that as you bring them up to date on what's been going on, and you will be opening the doors to solicit specific feedback or reaction, or how do you see that part of your presentation?
I'd love to be able to introduce information about Mary being hired. And certainly they can I'm also going to reintroduce our website address and direct people to look at that, and thereby they can get a hold of all of us.
Hey, Bill, any chance you could audio record it with their permission? Just your part of it?
I don't know if I'll have any way to do that.
Well, you do it with your phone.
I have a phone that could do that, but I don't know how to use it. So I just learned how to shut it off.
You just look at it. I'll see. I mean, if I can make one of those meetings, I may come and record it on my phone just so we have some documents. I mean, it wouldn't be publicly released, just so that we don't miss anything.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah, and if you do that, only do Bill's presentation and then make it clear you're turning it off so the staff can feel comfortable sharing, whatever they want. You're just gonna do the presentation and let them know.
Yeah. It would have to be by their
And
permission and for that
we
section
don't-
only.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, that one I'll turn mine on.
And I'll take notes for you. In other words, if they have comments and questions, you can keep chatting with them and I'll write down their concerns or their questions or whatever, and I'll just kind of be the recording secretary for the.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great point. Bill, is anyone doing that for you, like a scribe at the one at Pioneer? And does someone want to volunteer to
I'll go up to
sort
the
of,
Pioneer one too and do it.
oh, thank you.
Same thing.
Great. All right, so what I will do is, I'm gonna have Mary, Bill, get in touch with you once
Fine.
she's got that award, and you can, share your thoughts and so forth. And that will help to have both of you on the same page and your subcommittee when, that starts getting organized, where she's going out and doing those. I'm envisioning as remote meetings with the department leaders. So does that cover pretty much the part one logistics for now, right? We all set on that one? It was a good
Mhm.
conversation. Okay, part two was design and develop of a new survey. I see that as something that will evolve. It can be worked on, right away in terms of gleaning out the highlights from previous reports, so that we're educating people of what we learned, and then having it a work in progress as we're going through this, and maybe something would come out toward the middle of June, because if we do this right, we'll have a lot of education, we'll have a lot of people that will be aware of what's going on, be able to look at things, and so they'll be much more informed in taking a survey. But we would need some folks as a working group to revisit what we did and what we would be looking for. So I guess that'd be the way to approach it. What do we want to know? And then craft a fairly simple and short but comprehensive survey to get at what don't we know that we want to know, or perhaps we, with a much broader base in the response to the survey, might have a lot more credibility in what the findings are, because they were so limited, it was kind of skeptical in the findings. Mike, is your hand back up?
Yes, it is. Alan, I just, you had suggested we're done with part one. Have we completely covered the part C on that? The joint meetings with the various departments? Because I'd like to
Yes,
make sure
yes,
that we
yes.
understand what we expect to get from them.
Okay, Bill will be meeting with Mary. What we hope to get from them is for them to take a look at what would be possible with a larger student population in terms of scheduling, courses, electives, clubs, sports, all of that. So that will be one of the primary goals that Mary will be doing in meeting with the content leaders in the districts.
Okay, can we get a clarification on how that will be different from what's being done now? Where I'm getting at is, I've been hoping, and I'm seeing this as an opportunity, to get a picture of what it would take to offer what's being offered. If the two districts were combined, what resources would be needed to offer what's being offered now? And have that reveal what the excess capacity would be in a combined district, on the assumption that we would need fewer resources in a combined district than we would have with all the combined resources. And it seems to me that that's a question that should have a fairly straightforward answer, with a slight wrinkle that I believe in both schools, there are teachers that may offer things at both the high school and middle school level. And if the high school and middle school are 10 miles apart, that won't be happening. So there'll be some change there. And then once those extra resources are identified, then have some conversation about, well, okay, what could be done with them? And that's more open-ended, where presumably a number of different things could be done with them.
Alan?
But
Well, we may
I
find,
think
Deb, I'm gonna put this, I'm gonna put this over to Deb, but I just want to comment that we may find by giving our professional leaders in the district, working with the staff, we may find that we have the resources. We just weren't able to implement them in a way that would have reached more kids. But that'd be some of the work that the teachers would be doing. Deb?
Alan, my thought in these meetings is, from the education committee point of view, this is more philosophical. This is, what could you see? I don't think they're worried about resources at this point. And when you ask, and I'll speak athletically, you ask two athletic directors, what do you see if you combine two schools? I expect the conversation to be something like, well, we could offer a football program again, maybe, or wow, Pioneer kids could go swimming and have a swim team. That's the conversation I'm picturing. This is the initial meeting about, is the brainstorming of educational ideas. I don't think it's the jobs, particularly of teachers, not athletic directors, because they're certainly involved with money and all sorts of things like that, is to, I'm not talking pie in the sky program, but from the education committee, we always talked about, this is about education. That should be the primary concern about this combining of two school districts. And so I'm not expecting them, I mean, you could talk about the resources, but even with them talking about it, that would come down to an administrative decision anyway. So I'm hoping that these meetings are more, how do you envision this, being better for your students in science?
But if you don't tie
Yeah,
that to
and
the
I'm gonna-
resources,
yeah.
how
and-
could it not be pie in the sky?
Well, I don't want to get into a debate on this, because that's what would be able to be offered, because, and I'll come to you, Greg, let me just, what this is about, and it's much more in the direction that Deb is talking about, where those that are in the schools and know how difficult it is to have a schedule put together and offer content courses and offer electives and try to do them in such a way that a kid doesn't have to give up an elective to take, a required course and so forth. It's going to have a direct impact on scheduling and it gives the schedule much more flexibility so that kids can participate in more courses and more electives and hopefully, other outside, activities outside of the academics. So the challenge or the conversation, I'm hoping, is around what with an increased population, what would be possible that we could do or we would like to do. We all know from the previous reports, the program of studies in both schools is wonderful. But when we got down to the reality of, can you offer this or not? The answer would be, well, no, we have to have French 5 participate at French 4 because we didn't have the population. But if we did, we could probably have a French 5 class by themselves and so on. So I'm hoping that the teachers take the lead to think, with an enlarged population, what are the things we would like to see? When Mars did it, they theoretically, with very little feedback, came up with some ideas, but it would be prudent to get that from the staff. So Greg, I'm going to have you comment, and then I'm going to have Bill comment.
Yeah, well, first of all, you can do both. All right, so Mike, if I were going into one of these meetings and running a meeting with the two science departments of Pioneer and Gil Montague to see what's possible, the first thing you can do is you can bring in the report that the consultants did already, where they actually projected out some of the combined curriculum that would be possible. I don't know if you looked at the report, but they actually put forth like what is offered, what is run, what is potential. But the other thing is, your departments are going to know first of all what their enrollment is in their classes, right? So if they're running at half capacity, they're going to know fairly quickly whether or not when you fill that up, when you fill up the classroom with another 10 people, right? And or let's say you go over capacity for these courses, you're going to have to run another section of it, right? You have the curriculum coordinator in the room with you. They know immediately when you have to run another section. That creates flexibility in the schedule, which now opens up the possibility for other electives, right? This is how it works. So if they're running at half capacity, which is what you're talking about, again, when do you reach economies of scale? By increasing that class size, right? You don't necessarily need another teacher, right? You can, if it's only filled to half capacity and you go up to 20, right? You still have the same teacher teaching 20 instead of 10. That's fine, right? The resources don't necessarily, you don't have to add resources to do that. But what it does do is if you go up to 25 and now you have two classes that you can split and maybe they're doing, 14 and 1 and because they want to be able to offer other electives, that opens up the room for the schedule to be able to do that. The curriculum coordinator is going to know how to do that. Your individual departments may or may not because that's not their specialty. So you kind of have to work with both. And I just know this because I've had to do this. Literally, this is the 7th schedule I've had to do in my school. And I deal with electives. And so it's all about scheduling because if you can't run second sections and be able to schedule into 2 different sections at 2 different times, you don't have the flexibility because you're trying to put them all into one class. So that actually can be worked out pretty, I don't want to say easily, it just takes coordination and knowing exactly what you're looking for, right? So if they can say, these classes are only filled to half capacity, if we double the size, you get the 2 departments together and say, well, we actually have a lot of students in there that we would project, that we tend to have on a recurring basis, meaning that we tend to get a lot of people into Algebra 2 on a regular basis. It's going to fill up, when you combine the 2, and now you're running 2 sections of Algebra 2, which opens up the 10th grade electives, right? So your curriculum coordinator is going to know how that works. Your departments are going to know what their enrollments are and where they tend to fall short in particular classes. And so that actually can be worked out. It just takes a little bit of coordination, but it's not actually that hard to do.
Well, it sounds like you're agreeing with me.
Yeah, no, I
That
think
could be done.
I do. I think that it's okay to have that and to be able to know that. I think and then to Deb's point, once they understand, because these teachers know that once you begin to run second sections or even 3 sections of a particular course, what that does to opening up your curriculum for electives, right? And that's really where you get to the nuts and bolts of when you start to increase the size, all of a sudden the courses that you couldn't offer, that you wanted to offer, that you have the resources to offer, right, now become available, now become something that you can offer, right? Because
Right, the key being that you have the resources. I mean, because if you,
well, remember
I guess
part of the
it's
resources
not a-
though, part of the resources is the scheduling. And that's what
Right.
that takes a lot of learning how it works. But it really is, that's a resource because again, if you only have that, that one Algebra 2 class, it really doesn't matter. You're only utilizing that teacher to half capacity, right?
Right, but all I'm saying, I think, because what I was hearing before was that the teachers would be asked, if you had, more kids, what could you do? But they wouldn't be thinking about resources. And it just seems to me, well, the sky's the limit if you're not thinking about resources.
No,
At
not
some point, you're
necessarily. I think-
constrained by what you actually, have the capacity to do, and you need to keep that in mind. And if you've got the curriculum director in the room, you're right. I mean, you know more about this than I do, but it seems, it seems plausible to me that that's the person who would be saying, well, here's what we could probably do. These are the limits to what we could probably do. And I think that's what I'm interested in seeing, because we already know that if we have more kids, we would open up possibilities. I think we need to firm that up in a realistic way
Sure.
and not just say, well, it could be anything. Because in
No,
theory,
and
yes, it
that's
could be a
not
lot
true.
of different things. But
Right.
it couldn't be anything.
And but to Deb's point too, I mean, ultimately, what classes are going to run, right, is going to be an administrative decision. Because
Right, but this is just, I mean,
you're
this is
right,
sort of
yeah.
a what if.
You could get a
I mean, I know we're
baseline.
not asking them to set up a schedule. We're trying to say, well, you know, because I mean, we've already had the discussion of, you know, would you want to have a French 4, 5, and 6? Or would you want to have a, you know, history of, you know, a history of France and a, you know, French poetry and a French drama and a, you know, French comedy or something, you know? I mean, there's different ways to open up. There's different types of electives to have. And I think those conversations would be interesting too, in terms of what, you know, what the interests and abilities of the teachers who are there now would want to offer.
Yeah, no, I mean, what I'm trying to say is I think it can be done. And I don't think it would be pie in the
Okay.
sky to,
Well,
as
good.
far
Well,
as.
I just like to make sure that it does get done.
Okay.
Alan, is
And if
Mary,
it can be done,
Okay.
that's good.
Can I
is-
go to
mute
Bill
myself
first
now.
because Bill's been waiting to go, and then I'll go to Deb. Bill?
Yeah, thank you. No, Michael, you reminded me of another thing that part of my program, and I told you it would come in bits and pieces, is exactly what you're talking about is I'm going to, one of the things that we have not done as a committee is contrast the curriculums or the programs of study of the two schools. It has been talked about, but we haven't made any definitive statement about it at all. So my first suggestion would be that when the teachers get together, they're going to start working on thinking about the programs that they offer currently and how they might be enhanced if they had larger populations. It's not threatening anybody's position. It's saying, what can you think about? And it would not be in terms of a scatterbrain bunch of electives. That's all fine to have in a syllabus, but it's going to be based on the state standards for graduating from high school, which is what both of the schools' systems now develop their programs around. So you have to develop so many credits in each area of study. And then I won't digress beyond saying that I counted the other day the number of courses offered at Pioneer, one of which has been mentioned before was Chinese. But most of those weird, odd, unusual courses were online. They're virtual. They're not at the school, and only certain people are allowed to take them. In any event, Pioneer has 112 courses available for students to study, but they actually only offer 75 of those courses. And how many of them are filled, I don't know. That's not a criticism of Pioneer. It's the reality. And so my introduction is going to be, given that you're not going to grow at all, but you're going to have these number of students and you have these programs, how do you think you can develop them? How will they evolve? And from there, you can, right now, I believe that the finance committee could plug in the programs of both schools and as they exist and the number of teachers there and come up with some financial numbers if you really just wanted to see numbers. But beyond that, I'm trying to develop something that's totally non-threatening and encourages people to talk to one another. But thank you, Michael, because you brought all that out.
Deb?
My question was just to follow, is Mary going to meet with the staffs of each school separately? So she'll meet with the English, we'll say, teachers from Pioneer. She'll meet with the English teachers from Turner's Falls. And then
No,
she's
together.
So the initial meeting is together. So the English staffs from both schools will meet with Mary. Okay.
Correct. Steve?
Yeah, I think the other purpose of this meeting with the faculty is to actually get some buy-in from the teachers. You know, have them kind of see what's going on because they haven't been approached with this yet. And I think they need to kind of get an idea of, you know, what the hell we're doing. And just introduce it to them in a non-threatening way. And as you know, to get them to buy into it as well and to be thinking about what could happen, you know, and that's a starting point because at this point, from what I've heard people say, is that they think that we're coming down on them and saying, this is what's going to happen. And some of you, and they're thinking some of them are going to lose their jobs and others, you know, we're a committee that's trying to like rule them. And I think we want them to know that, no, we're community members that want to improve the quality of the education or what could be the quality of the education for their students and themselves. So that was my piece.
Hey, Deb? Okay.
Yeah, Steve, that's more or less what I was going to say. And I guess I just want to say certainly for Bill, who's very brave to do what he's doing. And I think it's so good. I guess I just would want the people that you talk to and for you to help them sort of separate out fact from feeling, because I think there's going to be a lot of feelings. I'm a therapist, there's going to be a lot of feelings in that room. And I just think I know you're going to do it well, and so will Deb Loomer. But I guess I just know that that's going to spill out all over the place. And reassuring people, just as Steve said, would be really important that we're exploring how to make the schools better. And if we don't have the teachers buying in, the teachers are very powerful. They have lots of connections. And if the teachers can't be open to this idea will not fly in the towns. So we really have to have the teachers be able to see the validity of combining the districts as something that could be positive.
Yeah, and then one last thing that may percolate from this is if we can get a handle on what could be and what that would look like and what their desires are, we might be able to move, if we have time, to some of the challenges that they see, that and maybe even be able to talk through some of them. But I wouldn't suggest that in the out of the gate. So for example, you can have, there's no reason why they can't be both. People talked about heterogeneous versus homogeneous, grouping and so forth. Those are things that you could have in a comprehensive high school. So it doesn't have to be one or the other. And those conversations could perhaps happen if we have time, later on as we move through this process. And so that will be the important part of the scribes, that some of the things that come up, not to get hung up on them, but to, make a note of them if they come up as part of the work that is going on with Mary and the teaching groups. Are we okay now with part one? For now? I mean, I didn't think anything would get 100% resolved because this whole thing is a work in progress. And as we learn more, we'll probably take twists and turns along the way. So I had moved to part two and was looking for people that might have an interest in taking a look at, what have we learned so far? What do we want to present in a format of developing another survey that would happen toward the end of all the process of what's been, the work that we'll be doing over 3 months. So I guess I'll let that, if you want to let that marinate for a bit, that doesn't have to be resolved tonight, but I certainly would like you to be thinking about it and if you have an interest in, and maybe we can get Mary's thoughts as well in terms of what she thought was missing from a survey and that redesign.
That's one of the
The
things she
third
said
part
she would help do.
was, pardon?
That's one of the things on Mary's list, isn't it, to develop
Yeah,
a survey?
yeah. But she'd be doing that not in a vacuum. We want, again, a working group of 2 or 3 that would work with her. Tonight's a perfect example. Through the conversations and sharing ideas, the product gets stronger. So through people sharing different ideas about what that redesign might look like for a survey, what didn't we find out with her input, as well as what we're learning. One of the things that may come out of the advertising part that's going on and people asking questions is that, the survey might then hone in on what some of those questions and answers are. And we want to be clearer about what information we're gleaning from that. Part 3 was developing, tweaking, enhancing a PowerPoint presentation. That would be something that perhaps could be done at a joint school committee meeting, really. So we start moving away from, separate presentations, something that could be recorded and repeated in each of the towns on the TV networks, and a presentation in each of the communities. So if people have an interest in looking at what the points of that would be, we'll have conversations with Mary as well. Mike, you might be interested in that because you had some concerns about the presentation and some of the confusions of the slides. And did we pull out as much information as we could have from a previous report? So I know, something to give some thought to.
Yeah,
And then, of
I already
course,
started working on some potential new slides for the financial and enrollment pieces. And I'd be willing to keep working on those.
perfect. Thank you.
And
We'll
along with
see what
other
we
people working on other aspects.
Yeah, so we could have the financial piece as part of that presentation and the educational piece. And then the last one is, go ahead.
Sorry, Dolph.
Mike, I'm sorry. I interrupted you. I didn't realize you hadn't stopped.
No, I just gonna say that, the current slideshow has financial and enrollment information. And I think that given that we've collected a lot more data, it could be updated. But there's other aspects to that slideshow that other people, I hope, know more about than I do.
I'm
All
willing.
right, thank you.
I'm willing to be on the presentation PowerPoint
Tweaking.
working group, whatever you would like to call it.
So so we have Greg, and I heard Mike is willing to work on an aspect of that. How about a few other volunteers as a working group? Steve?
Yeah, I'll participate in that one too, volunteer.
Thank you. All right, thanks.
Hey, Alan, can I just clarify one thing?
Sure.
Which is when I say, I wrote in the chat, that extra sections of required classes drive your availability of electives. Electives, to Bill's point, does not mean the harebrained electives that are, outside. What I'm trying to say is that an elective can also be in place of it can fulfill a requirement. So because you can run 2, let's say, standard English classes, right? It just allows flexibility for a second English teacher to maybe teach a creative writing class, which will also fulfill the English requirement. So that's the kind of flexibility that you see. It's not just electives, let's say, in the arts that are sometimes juxtaposed against required classes in, science and math. It's literally within their own departments as well. So they can also fulfill state requirements. Okay, anyways, I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you.
And Jennifer, I see you as part of this working group. I don't know if you would have any interest in, and you and maybe a couple others just taking a look at the questions and answers. I would certainly be willing to, work on that as well, that we got from the previous survey and other questions that were asked along the way. We did say that we would respond to that and put those on the website, and we'll need to follow through on that. So Jennifer, are you willing to work on that as well?
Sure.
Okay. And Greg, you're going to get drafted into that. The idea behind it is to answer and then share that to see if it's clear to the people that are responding to it. Because we do have to vet it. We don't want like two people. I come up answer and I answer a question, and then people read it and go, well, I don't understand what you said. So we'll have to figure out a process. So the purpose of this part on the agenda was just to provide an overview of other things that we need to do. We'll have the benefit of sharing these ideas with Mary and then seeing what her thoughts are in terms of these working groups. I'd like David's suggestion because I think this would be a real productive way to go about this. The last item did pretty good, 8 o'clock. As you know, I like to have hour-and-a-half meetings. The last item is we really need to nail down. Deb, is your hand up again? I
Yeah,
can't hear you.
yeah, my only other thought is I saw the ending date that Mary had. It would be nice at some point to get a pretty clear timeline of this is when this should be done by, this is when this should be done by, this is when this should be done by. So like the people that I'm going to meet with, it'd be nice to know, gee, you're going to have this done by May 15th because this is when this is going to occur. So for me, it would be nice to have that unit plan of what happens when, so that at least just for me, you have a clearer picture of not just a start and an end, but all the chapters in between.
Do you think that, Deb, that each working group could sort of come up with a preliminary timeline and then we can see how those are coordinated? I'm sure Mary will come up with a timeline for the the staff and pulling that information together. But you're right, if each working group can do that, and then we can blend them together into a document, so the right and left hand knows what's going on, and we can see how that needs to be made a little better, so things culminating toward the end of June.
Right.
That's a great suggestion.
I was thinking, for instance, if Mary's going to meet with the public again, that is what she's thinking about. So for me, that date's important because you would have to have everything in line for that particular thing. And as we meet, do we want two separate ones? So once again, it's just kind of an overview of the next 2.5 months.
Yeah, good point. And also, along with that, if there are PowerPoint slides being created, that's ongoing. And so what's the end date of maybe the wrap-up slide, so to speak, but they're working on that over that time period. Thank you. That's good input. So the last item is let's see if we can nail down a few full board meetings. I'm hoping that things start to wind down on the thing going on. Towns are getting ready for their budgets. School committees are working with budgets and all kinds of other things. Pioneer did adopt one. Gil Montague, you must have one now, right? Probably had it for a while. So
Yep.
That does free up some time. Tuesday seemed to, Tuesday or Wednesday, I guess, there's so much going on in the districts. Bill, you meet every other Tuesday. Right? But I don't know in April, when is the first, is it the first and the third, or?
Second and fourth. I think,
So that'd be the 12th and the 26th.
yep,
Okay. And the 19th is too far out. Is it possible at all that we could meet next Thursday so that we can have a meeting with her as a full board, and then we will break up into the working groups?
I can do it.
Which Thursday?
Thursday,
The
7th?
7th. Yeah, if we can meet on the 7th. Or, yeah, if we can get a quorum on the 7th to help Mary organize thinking and share her thoughts, that'd be really helpful. And that would, Bill, you'll have met with both groups, both faculties by then too.
Yep,
That'd be a busy week for you. Can I write that in?
What time?
6:30? Do you want it early in 6:30, or like 6 o'clock, or what are your thoughts?
6:30 is fine with me.
Okay. So I'll put 6:30 for next Thursday on the planning board. And then the thinking is that once we have that big meeting and then it goes into working groups, we won't have to, meet perhaps as often. So let's earmark that, and let's see if we can do another one. Is it possible before the April vacation, which is the week of the 19th, right? The week of the 18th, right? That's April vacation.
That's April vacation.
I'm assuming people aren't going to want to meet during that time, but I'm open to whenever. Otherwise, maybe we could meet the following, how about the 13th on a Wednesday?
What date were you talking? So you're talking 13th now?
Yeah, so we nailed down the 7th at 6:30. Now I'm throwing out, to avoid the April vacation and not get too far, let it get too far away from us, Wednesday, the 13th.
Do you
It
think
can
we'd
be a
have something to talk
relatively
about
focused
for that?
meeting. Well, we've talked about a lot of things that will need organization and some logistics. So I'm thinking that it's an opportunity for Mary to, hopefully she'll be able to make these dates, but for Mary to kind of weigh in and maybe make suggestions and shape our thinkings for those that are working on working groups.
I think if we give Mary ideas on the 7th, if she has enough time, it would be nice for her to come back to us and lay out her plan then and have an interaction and discussion about it if she can get it done in the week.
All right, so why don't we try this? We could put down tentative the 13th, but that may be too early, like you say. That's not a lot of time to plan. And does anyone have any appetite to meet during April vacation for an hour and a half? You'd be okay with that? I see.
Doesn't matter to me.
I can do it.
Not a
All
vacation.
right, do you want to do that?
But if the educators want to, but
My
No,
brain,
I will be in, I'll be in, where will I be? I'll be in North Carolina, but that's the good thing about Zoom. So you want to try the 19th at 6:30? That's a Tuesday.
I'm babysitting, to be honest with you. I have no idea. I could put a movie on, I suppose.
For an hour, yeah, an hour and a half Disney movie. Well, we can get you for a little bit. It may not be, it may not run that long. All right, so I have the 7th. I have a potential Wednesday, the 13th. And then if that was too early, instead of that, we would not have that. Instead, we'd be meeting on the 19th. So I can get feedback from Mary once she meets with us on the 7th and she starts looking at what it is she needs to do. This was a really good meeting. I can't wait to start meeting in person, but probably everyone's going to want to keep doing remote even when the pandemic is totally over. I think we're starting to get comfortable with it. It's nice to see faces and not masks. Does anyone else have any other business or any other thing you want to bring up? All right, then I will entertain a motion. I'm not seeing anything, so entertain a motion to adjourn.
Oh, moved.
So I heard Greg and I think I heard Bill. Was that a second, Bill?
That's
or
because
was
it's
that a-
Bill. It's because it's Bill and my second Zoom meeting today. We're ready
Okay.
for dinner.
All right. All right, I got to do a roll call. So Deb Loomer,
Yeah,
Deb, Mike,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
David.
David,
David's on
yes, and
mute.
I hope you don't make me look bad by going to that other meeting, because I'm not.
Oh, okay. I can pass on that. Okay. I haven't eaten anything, so okay. I will go eat. Steve
Yeah,
and Deb Pote
Yep.
and Renee
Yes.
and Rena,
Yes.
Christy,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Pat,
Me too.
Lynn,
Aye.
and Bill. She waved, so that was an acknowledgement. Thanks, Lynn. All right, thank you, everybody. I really appreciate your comments and your input. This was a great meeting. All right, enjoy the rest of your evening.
bye, Alan, thank you.
Bye.
And,
Thanks.
and
Thanks,
happy
Alan.
Easter to all.